It's the Sean Widmer Podcast. It's a journal by someone that just really doesn't like to write.
Everybody, we made it to the weekend. We did it. We succeeded. Congratulations. You are there. It is Friday when I am releasing this episode of the podcast, and hopefully you are listening to it as your weekend is getting going, and I'm hoping your weekend is going to go extremely well. Ours is starting off weird. I'm in something that I've never experienced before. We'll get into that in 1 second. I've got a shout out to my brother-in-law. We'll get to that in a second. Some observations I had today with my daughter at her school. Something I'm wrestling with as a parent, knowing that I love sports. With my kids maybe being into sports, who knows? We'll talk about that. Kelly's What Are You Into? We're going to dive into the movie world as we've done a couple times recently. But I finally watched a movie from the 80s that I had not watched, and one that I've always wanted to watch. And I finally watched it, so some thoughts on that. And then at the end of the episode today, after we read the comments, for those of you who do not like the TV show Survivor, you can stop the podcast. But for those of you who do like Survivor, at the end of the Friday podcast, we break down the latest episode in sort of a quick way. It's not this deep dive. It's not going to be an hour of talk about Survivor, but we'll get into it a little bit. Some thoughts on this week's episode of Survivor. Okay, let's start with where we're at today, because something is happening that I have never witnessed or never been a part of, and I don't know what I think right now. I think I'm terrified. We have tornado warnings in Lexington. Tornado warnings. So I've got to be on the lookout tonight. They have sirens all over town that go off if the tornado hits. I've never been in tornado country. And so I don't know what's going to happen. You know, it's a weird thing. It's not like there's tornadoes on the horizon and they're like, look, it's coming at you. They just, I guess, form. It's weird. So I'm on tornado lookout tonight. My first time with this, not something I'm excited about, but we are in tornado warning. It made me think back, what were the worst natural disasters I've lived through? And in Venezuela, we didn't really have one. We had a couple earthquakes, but they weren't like terrible earthquakes. So we had a couple of earthquakes, and then in the States are where my two that I would have had that were really big ones happened. In 1996, we were in Spokane for 1 year, and there was the ice storm, big ice storm, 1996 ice storm in Spokane, Washington. It had $22 million in damages. 20,000 people in the area were out of power for 6 days. What happened was it got really, I'm trying to remember how this worked. It got warm and rained, and then got really cold as it was raining, and all the rain froze everywhere, including to the trees, and it just took trees out because the weight of the ice and all these trees knocked them over. So they were falling down all over houses and all over power lines. So that was a brutal one. Now, I've got three that I've been around that were terrible. There was one that happened. I was not part of it, but I wanted to at least mention it because it was in the area. The city of Medical Lake had one of the craziest, terrible fires, and it just devastated that city. And it was awful. It was scary. It was dreadful. Not good. So that was really bad. And then the one that I lived through, just like ice storm, would have been windstorm in 2015 in Spokane. And this one, gusts of wind, 71 miles per hour. It was just picking trees up and moving them. And I was out of power for a little over a week. And I remember the neighbors across the street, they got power after like 3 days. And for some reason, the grid that I was on didn't get power until much later. So that was a really weird one. Windstorm 2015. Those are the ones I've been part of, but we are on tornado watch here in Lexington. I don't know what to do. Now, while tornado watch is happening, I got to tell you, I need to throw a shout out in there, as I did get my information on what happens with the tornadoes from my brother-in-law, Patrick. Thank you, Patrick. I get pretty much all my information from him. He's the best. He opened his home tonight to the boys, and we went over, and Patrick in his basement has one TV up on the wall, another TV below it, and had the quad boxes going on 2 TVs as we just consumed college basketball. Conference tournaments are here, so there's like 50 games going on today. So many games at a time, and we are just consuming basketball here in Lexington. Had a ton of fun with Morgan, Rob, Chris, Patrick, Ryan, just talking hoops, watching hoops, getting excited for March Madness, watching teams that are trying to break in and get a bubble or get a berth by winning their conference tournament, bubble teams who are trying to solidify their spots, watching these dudes just ball out. This is fun, man. And I as much as I would love to talk basketball right now because I love it and I'm excited about it and I'm real excited for March Madness, I need to focus on what mattered tonight. I believe our get-togethers with the boys have been run by nerd clusters in a way that is a little bit ridiculous. Tonight was the one that hit me. Morgan came in with not the little bag of nerd clusters. He just brought the big old boy. He was like, screw it. We've been messing around with the little bag enough. I'm bringing in the big guns, and we devoured them. Nerd clusters do not stand a chance when they are near us. We are going to kill them. It was a really healthy get-together tonight. We had nerd clusters and the Reese's eggs. The Reese's peanut butter cup eggs for Easter. That was our wonderful get-together spread tonight. It was awesome. So thank you, Patrick, for opening your home, letting us come in, throwing up the double quad boxes, letting us watch basketball while we just crushed a ton of nerd clusters. A candy that is just flying up my rankings. I don't know when our next candy rankings is, probably in summer. Nerd clusters is going to be really tough to get knocked out of moving into the top 3. It's going to be really tough to do that. I do love my sweets, which is why today was a double whammy. My sweet little girl. I love my sweets. My sweet little girl, Clever. My sweet little girl and I got to go to her school for Donuts with Grown-Ups, and it was awesome. And it was a fun deal. I haven't been able to do this yet, and I haven't really been to my daughter's class. My daughter's in preschool, and so it's really funny to experience her experiencing school for the first time, and getting to have her come home with little projects. And some days opening up and telling us everything that happened in class, and other days keeping everything secret and we don't know anything, getting to hear the names of all the friends that she has at school, and sometimes they change, and it's fun, right? It's fun to know you've lived through all this and now see someone else experiencing it for the first time. And also, I'm old dad. I never experienced anything like it. So all of the things she talks to my wife and I about, we've never seen. She is telling us about revolutionary stuff. It's very cute. So today I got to go to Donuts with Grown-Ups, and a ton of dads go take the kids to this one. So it's a fun moment as a dad because you walk in and every dad's doing the same thing. We're all sizing ourselves up. We're all looking around the room like, what dad's got it? What dad gets it done better than me? Everyone's doing it. And I lost the game today. But that's all right. I know I'm killing it at home. I had an empty cardboard box we turned into a little jail for my daughter earlier today. She thought it was the greatest house in the world, her dream house. It's 2x2. She hardly fits in it. It's 2x2, but about 4 feet tall. But she hardly fits in it, and she thought it was the greatest thing. So we got the dad thing, okay, but you go walk in, and you're kind of sizing up the other dads, and I realized in this moment, this was the moment I realized, oh man. So we get to the table where the table with all the donuts. You walked in, they had all these assigned seats, but you go through, you grab donuts for you and your kid, and then you sit down at the table and you enjoy some donuts and some orange juice. They had some Sunny D. And so I'm getting our plate ready with some donuts, and I grab the drinks, and I go sit down at the table. And Olivia and I could not crush our donuts fast enough. We couldn't slam our Sunny D's fast enough. And I get done, I'm in a good spot, and I look around, and I'm realizing there are not a lot of dads crushing donuts. It is me and the kids. It is just that moment where I got out-alphaed in such a big way. The dude at our table, nicest guy, nicest dad. He is making his sweatshirt work. Big dude, big, strong dude. He had 0 donuts. I was making my sweatshirt work in a different region. I crushed 3 donuts, man. Now, they were cut in half, so a donut and a half, and I just slammed them. The Sunny D I had didn't stand a chance. It was dead in the water the second I walked in that room. So yeah, it was kind of that moment where then you're looking around, and at the end of the donuts with grown-ups, they have all the chairs. They're like, hey, if you guys don't mind, could you take your chairs and stack them on the side because they're going to clear the room out so they can use this space later in the day. And I've got Olivia in my chair, and I look over, and there's a dude who has like 70 chairs in his hands. And he's like one hand, and he's holding this kid in the other. He's smiling. He's buddies with everyone. And I'm thinking, I'm shaking, and my arms are shaking with these 2 chairs. How do you have 60? So it was awesome, but it was the moment you go and you size everyone up, and I realized the size didn't hit me for this one. But it was so cute watching my daughter interact and getting to see her friends and run up to them, give them hugs. They're all doing twirls. They want to play twirls. Right? The game I'm not familiar with as a kid. I was just, let's run until we sweat and someone gets hurt. They were like, do you want to twirl? To each other, do you want to twirl? Let's twirl. So it was just so cute seeing them interact and getting to see this different side of your kid that you don't see at home. I absolutely adored it. I'm excited for the next one. And look, now that I know the other dads aren't eating their donuts, man, I'm going in next time. I'm getting theirs, mine, everyone's. Maybe take a couple other kids' donuts out as well. The other dad thing that I had from this week that I wrestle with, and I've wrestled with this a long time. I wrestled with this before I had kids. I love sports. Love sports. Sports were so crucial to my life. Well, they've always been crucial to my life. They still are today. But growing up, that's what I loved. I loved playing sports. And it didn't matter what it was. If it was if someone was throwing down some tennis, I wanted to be there for it. If we were out there throwing the baseball around, I wanted to be there for it. Soccer, football. Of course, I love hoops. It didn't matter. I loved sports. And I always wanted to play them. And growing up, I always played sports, right? Whatever the season was at school, I was playing that sport. As it got to high school, I dropped out on a couple sports so I could focus on basketball, and ended up, I think, my last 2 years, I didn't play anything besides basketball because I got on some city teams, so I was able to fill the entire school year playing basketball, and I loved it. But I loved playing every sport. And as you have kids, one of the things that comes up is, well, if sports are kind of part of my life, there's a good chance that one of my kids is going to want to play sports. Maybe all 3 of them will want to play sports. I don't know, but there's a good chance of it. And they're going to work their way through stuff, and that's going to give me as dad the opportunity to get involved. At what level am I going to get involved with sports? And this is something I thought about a lot because my mindset right now, I'm recording this at 12:38 a.m., on March 15th, my mindset is I don't want to coach my kids. I want to be around for the sports. I want to cheer. I want to support. I want to help at home, but I don't think I want to coach. But this is what I've been wrestling with, right? Because, you see some people that you like, and they do it what I feel like would be like the right way. And then I still see the people who I think do it the wrong way, and that's kind of like, oh, I don't know, that seems too intrusive, and I don't like how this is working. But I see enough people do it sort of the right way, make me consider getting into it. Well, we went to a baseball game this weekend for one of the nephews, and I'm back out on being on the coaching staff for any of my kids' stuff. There was more parents on the field than there were kids. I for a second, I thought I was watching maybe a parents versus parents kind of fun scrimmage that the kids got to laugh at. Like when you would be at school and the kids would play against the teachers in basketball, and there was always one teacher who showed up in brand new Jordans or Kobe's or LeBrons and would just be out there doing work to the little kids, and this was their one chance to let out their anger on the kids that drive them crazy all the time. I thought that's what I'd walked into, some kind of weird scrimmage, adults versus kids. No, it was just the coaches, and they're everywhere. And it was just crazy. And I thought, no, this isn't going to be for me. There's too many factors involved there. I already feel this weird thing where I don't want to intrude on my kids' sports world. I want them to have coaches that aren't me, and I want them to get to enjoy that away from dad and not just be continually intrusive on it. even though I know, like, my brother-in-laws are so good at this, I'm not wired like them. I would be annoying. So I see that, and I don't know. I feel like I'm out. I feel like I'm out. Even though I see them doing it the right way, I feel like I'm out because I see too many pieces that could go wrong with that many people on the field. You put that many obstacles in my way, I'm going to run into one of them. If there's 16 coaches on the field, one of those coaches at minimum is going to hear it from me. So I just think I need to be the guy on the sideline, loving on my kid, cheering, being pumped, offering help at home. But yeah, I saw it this week. That was a different world. My eyes were open to a different world with Little League Baseball here in Lexington, Kentucky.
Kelly's, what are you into?
You got to go way back for Kelly's What Are You Into today. In fact, I should get the actual date on this. You have to rewind time to 1984 when you might have gone out on a hot date with that one special someone in your life, and you got to hold hands through a movie featuring Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Rick Moranis, Ernie Hudson, Sigourney Weaver, William Atherton, that being Ghostbusters. A movie that I have wanted to watch my entire life and just never have. And I honestly don't know the reason why I haven't. So Ghostbusters, I would always have said, is one of my favorite franchises in entertainment. But it never had to do with the movies. So Ghostbusters has Ghostbusters. Let me see. I want to make sure I get this right. I'm going to make sure I have the right ones. Ghostbusters has a handful of movies. They have got Ghostbusters Answer the Call. Well, let's do it in order. Ghostbusters, 1984. Excuse me. Ghostbusters 2 came out in 1989. Then in 2016, they had Ghostbusters Answer the Call, which featured, I think Melissa McCarthy was in that movie. I'm trying to remember who all they had in that movie. Anyways, they had Ghostbusters Answer the Call. Then in 2021, the kid from Stranger Things and Paul Rudd were in Ghostbusters Afterlife. And that's a good run. There's a new Ghostbusters movie coming out, which brought it back to my attention. Ghostbusters The Frozen Empire comes out on March 22nd. So Ghostbusters was kind of on my mind. I was like, why have I never watched the first one as a Ghostbusters fan? Where did my Ghostbusters fandom come from? Why do I feel like I'm a Ghostbusters fan? Well, from 1986 to 1991, there was a cartoon out called The Real Ghostbusters. Excuse me. 140 episodes, I believe, of this show. And again, ran for 6 seasons. A great run, and a cartoon that was one of my personal favorite cartoons growing up. The Real Ghostbusters. And they had a big line of toys around it. They had a bunch of stuff. Toys, the cereals. They had a Slimer gum that came in a toothpaste container that was just, I'm sure, disgusting. But I got it because I love Slimer. And I loved this Ghostbusters cartoon. I absolutely loved it. And so because of that, I felt like I was a Ghostbusters fan. But I just never seen the movies. I was little. Obviously, when they came out, I was 3 years old when the original came out. And I just always was too little to watch it. It wasn't going to pass the Tim and Leslie Widmer seal of approval through the house when I was in elementary school or junior high. And then I just lost track of it because it became an older movie. So I finally got a chance to watch it because I want to watch all the Ghostbusters movies. I didn't like it. I didn't hate it. Okay, when I say I didn't like it, that doesn't immediately mean I hated Ghostbusters. So you Ghostbusters lovers out there, don't come at me and crucify me for that, because I didn't hate it. It was fine. It was fine. It had some moments that were good. It didn't really make me laugh. It was interesting, I guess. The story got just kind of happened real quickly. Like all of a sudden there was just ghosts, and then it was not like they just kind of were thrown in. There was no like slow build up to them. You finally get to why they're there, Zool and all this stuff. the story seemed very thrown together half-heartedly. But I will say the actors they pulled in were great. Bill Murray's great. Dan Aykroyd's great. Harold Ramis, who I'd never really seen in anything, was great. Sigourney Weaver was great. I ended up getting into sort of a Rick Moranis deep dive because Rick Moranis is, I think, fantastic in it. Maybe my favorite part of the movie is Rick Moranis. Do you think I'm dying? Does anyone think I might be dying? Maybe. Rick Moranis, great in it. And I was wondering, what happened to Rick Moranis? I was like, what's the last movie he's been in? I just had never thought about that. I loved Rick Moranis in Spaceballs. And I love Rick Moranis. Most importantly, I loved him growing up, loving him in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Honey, We Shrunk the Baby. Honey, I Shrunk the Baby. I think there was a Honey, I Shrunk Ourselves. Anyways, Rick Moranis was someone I enjoyed in my childhood. I wondered what happened. I'm like, I feel like I haven't seen him in anything. I did not realize he retired from acting after Honey, I Shrunk the Baby. I believe that's the last one he did. And that was it. 1997, I think it was, that he... What's going on? I need water. I don't have water. Hang on. There we go. Got some water. We're back. We're cooking again. But I did not realize Rick Moranis had stepped away. And then I didn't realize there was a story a few years ago. He got attacked in New York by someone. I think a homeless person attacked him, hit him in the face, hit him in the head. And that was like a tragic story. He didn't kill him, but a sad story, not tragic, a sad story. And that was, I just realized, was like, Rick Moranis, where were you? Strange Brew, another movie I loved growing up. I thought Strange Brew was so funny. I thought they were great. What were they? Bill and, what were the Strange Brews guys named? Oh, I'm going to have to look this up. Bob and Doug McKenzie. Should have got that. Bob and Doug McKenzie were great. Anyways, these are the things I learned from Ghostbusters. But I didn't love the movie. I am excited to continue to watch the movies. I'm going to watch Ghostbusters 2 this weekend. I will watch Ghostbusters Answer the Call, which across the board people say is the worst of the Ghostbusters entries in any form, whether it's cartoon or movie. That one gets dunked on the most. And I'm real excited to watch Ghostbusters Afterlife. I heard good things about it, and I thought it looked cool. I like Paul Rudd. I thought the movie looked interesting, and I'm real excited for the new one. The previews for the new ones look good. Guess what? With the improvements in CGI, the ghosts look a little better than they did in 1984. So that's my Kelly's What Are You Into? I did not hate Ghostbusters. I just didn't love it like I wanted to. I enjoyed it. It was an enjoyable movie. I'm not mad I watched it by any stretch of the imagination. I won't be going out of my way, though, to watch it over and over again. Okay, let's get to the comments. Then let's get to Survivor Talk, shall we? I'm going to take a drink of water so my throat doesn't fall out. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see me struggle through this. And if you are watching on YouTube, you can also comment there on today's episode if you want to get your comments read here in the comments section. You can also comment over on Sean'sLife.com or on Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify, go to today's podcast. You can comment on it, and we will read that on the next episode. Let's go to the comments from the website, Sean'sLife.com. We start with Scotty, who says, I'm a firm believer in feeding and always feeding your kids the same thing you are eating. Kind of a must. Please try cheese and honey sandwiches before you knock it. More Broncos talk, please. I will never try a cheese and honey sandwich. Well, I can't say never. I might try it now that it's out there. I got a lot of feedback about feeding your kids the same thing as you. A lot of feedback. A lot of people want to be parents. I get it. I'm just telling you, man. To beat the dead horse, if we make it, they're not eating it, I'm eating it. So I'm going to make stuff they need to eat because I can't afford it. Okay, Ian said, I get your point, Sean, but consider this perspective. Oh, this is about Gonzaga. Morale plays a huge part in how a team plays. Every time, without fail, the Zags got going, they suddenly started fouling like crazy, enough to kill it. I think you meant momentum. Momentum plays a huge part, and I'm with you. The momentum was getting sucked out of that game, and that's a good point. That's a really good point. Did you see Akira Toriyama died and that the Mexican cartels held a ceasefire in his honor? Akira Toriyama, for me, notorious for making Dragon Ball. I enjoyed Dragon Ball Z. I saw that, Ian. I did not see the Mexican cartel thing. They held a ceasefire in his honor. Crazy. And then he went to say, world building is necessary, and a necessary evil in new shows, movies without background. We can relate to this. This results in slow episode starts. Okay, so the world building in The Bear is what he's talking about, and why maybe those first couple episodes are slower, because they're building up to greatness. You guys, what the heck is wrong with my throat? I need a doctor to come over and look into my mouth. Michelle said, my husband and I started watching Survivor because of your podcast. Thank you. We love The Bear. We also love The Bear. We just rewatched the end of season 2 after hearing you talk about it. What a great show. Both of them. I'm so glad you're watching Survivor, Michelle. It's so good. So good. Let's head over to YouTube. A couple comments on YouTube. Dan said, good morning, Slim. Good morning, Dan. Roberta said, aren't you, and you aren't reading the obituaries yet, so happy for your Lady Eagles, even if it, let me read this again, Roberta. She said, and you aren't reading the obituaries yet, so yes, I'm reading weird news stories. But then she said, so happy for your Lady Eagles, even if Zags couldn't pull it off. I know that's spelled wrong, Roberta. I'm reading it as written. I am excited for the Lady Eagles. Very pumped. My second cousin is one of the coaches, Jordan Bozel. And so my mom's a Bozel. Jordan is a Bozel, obviously. That's why I said Jordan Bozel. So we got some ties, family ties to Eastern. Plus, I love the university. Roberta, I'm sorry that I butchered your comment there by not being able to sift through words. And John said this one, Patchen and Lukens has to be the best sports radio show of all time. Tough call, but I still think the Eags make the tournament. Not possible. Would be a shame for such a great season to go to waste. Yeah, this is going to be the back-to-back years of great seasons ending before the tournament. No chance they make it. 0% chance. That's a bummer. And Patchen, I'm going to comment on the beginning part. You commented. I talked to Patchen earlier this week. I think he's a legend. But Patchen and Lukens was not a good radio show. Patchen's Luken and Oso was a good radio show. That's a good local radio show. Because Patchen and Oso were great. I never understood the Rick Lukens shtick. Sorry, Rick. I like Rick. Rick and as a human being, Rick and I think we got along. I was on his show hosting with him a couple times, and I think he came on with Dick Al and me a couple times, and he's so nice. And I saw him out and about. Every time I saw him out and about, Rick was great. Played poker with him a couple times. He was great. I just didn't think he was great on the radio. And just my very honest opinion. Patchen Oso, awesome, though I will give him credit for that. Not one of the best sports radio shows of all time. I'm going to go Dan Lebitard, Jim Rome, Tony Bruno and Andrew Siciliano. Ben Maller had a great radio show. George Sedano and the Third Shift on Fox. They had a great show. I did love SVP and Rosillo. I've never been a Cowherd guy. I had a minute where I really liked Dan Patrick, but I kind of fell off on that. So there you go. I love sports radio, man. I freaking love it. Okay, thank you for listening. Thank you for the people who commented. You can sign off now. You have 30 minutes you got today. The rest of the way through, we are diving into Survivor. If I can get the buttons to work. Episode 3 of Survivor is in the books, and what an episode it was. I was wrong about something a few episodes ago, and we need to clear the air. Banu sucks. Banu stinks. But that's not where we're going to start. We're going to start with Randon. What a bummer in this episode to have the whole thing hinge around a weird freak injury. The whole episode ended up being affected by this. As we went to the Yellow Tribe at one point in time, and they had Randon, who had just made a deal with Venus. They were going to try to make this power play with the two of them and try to start to pick people off if they ever start losing challenges. Venus needed the teammate. Randon needed the teammate. And all of a sudden they show Randon, he can't move his right arm. And he's got numb feeling down his right arm. He can't feel anything by his thumb and finger. It's a scary looking injury. And they monitor it, the doctors monitor it, and finally pull the plug on him being in the show. And this is a big deal because when someone leaves with a medical emergency, they normally cancel tribal council, which is what they did. And this purple team, who cannot catch a break, they can't win for a darn. They lost again at a challenge. And they get bailed out, didn't have to vote anyone out because they already had someone leave. Now, mixed emotions on this for the Purple Tribe because I think there were some plans in place to make one of two moves, get one of the most annoying characters off the show and a complete liability in Banu, or maybe if Q pulls his move off, take out a powerhouse in Kenzie with sort of a backdoor, our first blindside, real big blindside of the season. And so this is taken away from us because Randon, unfortunately, gets taken out of the show with this injury. I did go on to read he just had swelling. It was just swelling, and they put him on some anti-inflammatories, and everything is better with him now. He didn't have to have surgery, which is something they had mentioned might need to happen in the show. So that was good news for Randon. Bummer that he was off of the episode. But it affected a lot of it because, there was going to be so much craziness at that tribal council. Banu is a nightmare. He's a leaky faucet in two ways. One, he's crying all the time, but also he's just spilling info like it's nothing. Like he is just an open faucet of information. If you ask Banu a question, he'll tell you everything. No secrets, no strategy. Terrible player of Survivor. And like I said, a liability to the purple team. He buried the purple team to Ben and was it Mariah or Liz? Ben and Mariah or Liz. I get them confused. But just told them everything and made the purple team seem way meaner than they are, which was terrible. He made these two feel bad for him, that he was getting mistreated at camp when he's not getting mistreated at all. He's really bad at the game. And all that they've been trying to tell him is, Banu, you can't spill every single bit of our strategy at tribal council. That's not going to work when we need to keep our plan secret. And that really offended him. And he's a mess. So who had a bad episode? I've got 3 people who had a bad episode, 3 people who had a great episode. Banu had a bad episode, a terrible episode. I think he's a liability moving forward. I'm a little curious about Q, who is my second player to have a bad episode, because Banu is such a liability for Q to think it's positive to keep Banu around because he thinks he can mold him into some kind of player that's going to work. He thinks that Banu is going to vote for him. The second Banu gets around other people who might sympathize with him, he's bailing. This dude would be a nightmare to try to work with down the stretch. He would switch sides the whole entire show. He'd ping pong around between everyone, just always feeling bad, and whoever could give him the most attention is probably going to get his vote that night. So Q had a bad night because Q trying to maybe keep Banu around was, I think, poor strategy. Finally, third person, Venus had a bad episode. Venus lost Randon, so that was a bummer for her. She lost her ally, and she just is starting to come across a little bit. Well, she might be trying to play too hard before you need to play too hard. And they haven't lost anything. Her tribe hasn't lost anything. They haven't really had to spill any blood yet. And she's really strategizing hard. I think because she thinks she's on the bottom, so she's worried about leaving. But she's not making friends right now like you should with your tribe. And I think she's had a couple really bad episodes, and obviously this was a terrible one for her because she lost her one ally. Who had great episodes? The greatest episode, Hunter had the greatest episode. Hunter made a bed. Hunter won the 1 million hearts that Banu wanted to win. Hunter won them with his little backstory video they showed. Hunter won 1 million hearts. And mine's one of them. Crushed the competition, got out in the competition and just annihilated it from start to finish. Everything in the challenge looked easy for Hunter. Everything. He's having one heck of a run right now. Now, it's early in the season. Venus has sniffed him out as a threat. Does he make it to the merge? I don't know. But the longer he's on the show, the better. This dude is great for Survivor, and he had a great episode. Jem had a great episode. Jem is deadly. Jem just has the vibe of Survivor killer. Super nice, super strategic, very, very smooth talker, good talker. Found herself an immunity idol. Well, found herself the starts to an immunity idol. Got the Beware advantage. Found the box. Now she just has to wait until her tribe loses an immunity challenge, and then she can try to get the actual immunity idol. Jem's sitting pretty, and I really enjoy her. They haven't showed her a ton because they focus so much on the purple team. We don't know a lot about her, but I think we're going to know a ton about her by the time the season is over. She's definitely going to be someone who's there for a long time. And I thought Tiffany had a good episode. Third person who had a good episode. I thought Tiffany had a good episode. And here's why. They kept hinting at how she is Kenzie's number one, she's Q's number one, and she also has an idol. So as much as she's on the crap team this year, and this season and last season are very similar, how there is a tribe that is just losing nonstop to start the season, and they're depleted to nothing by the time the merge happens. And then it's really hard to whittle your way in because your numbers are bad. You're an easy target during the merge because the remaining tribes are like, we don't know you. You're easy to vote out. We're not hurting any feelings. So this is kind of a problem. Now, the fact that they lost and didn't have to vote out Banu means they keep their numbers a little higher, and now another chance in another tribal to kind of even off the playing field. But Tiffany's sitting good right now, sitting pretty right now. She did great at the challenge. Again, she's Kenzie's number one. She's Q's number one. She has the idol. She had another good episode. I also thought her vibes towards Banu were solid because this dude was losing it off the deep end. And I thought the way she approached him in some situations felt sincere, and I think Banu would realize that. And she's someone he probably would work with going forward. I love this show. I love it. And I'm excited to see what happens next week. I believe we're going to be on a purple winning streak now until they merge teams. And I think if you're Venus right now, you got to be worried about yourself. Venus has got to be very worried. Ben did go on the journey this week, and I know he said that made him seem, like a target. I do feel like that is going to be something. If Green Team loses, they have not had any problems so far. That is something so like just a little bit of going on a journey is just enough of a problem to get you voted off when this team is going to be like, look, we like each other. We all get along. Well, this guy might have an advantage, so let's vote him out. I mean, it's unfortunately that simple for Ben. So I think we're looking at a Venus or Ben out next week. Both, I don't like Venus. I don't mind Ben. But I think Banu is in for a while. I think Banu may stink, but I think he's going to be around for a little while. Okay, thanks for listening to the podcast today. I appreciate it. Have a great, whenever you're listening to this.